Welcome back to Talk Tech Live. Today we're talking about the wild world of first-party ordering, third-party deliveries, and loyalty management. Because let's be honest, we know those third-party platforms can feel like that friend who borrows stuff and never returns it. Joining me are two industry wizards who are here to help take back control of your customer relationships. One is the co-founder of a platform that makes order management smoother than your favorite pizza delivery. And the other, a loyalty guru who knows all the tricks to keep customers coming back like they're hooked on your secret sauce. Get ready for some laughs and valuable insights on turning those third-party customers into die-hard fans of your brand. I'm excited to welcome today's guest. We have Brett, the co-founder of Stream, who's here to simplify order management for restaurants, and Arun, the director of partnerships for Incentivio, who knows how to turn customer data and loyalty into gold. Let's introduce today's donation dish. When you hear this word from either guest, we're going to make a donation to the charity. And if you show how many times they said it in the comments below, you're entered for a Talk Tech Live swag kit. Thanks so much for joining me on the show today, guys.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. So let's dive right into the nitty gritty. Third party is a huge piece of everybody's business, right? So I really want to talk about the importance more of like first party ordering and how we can, use data to get these orders to be more profitable. So just like a general quick like elevator pitch from each of you on how we can like accomplish that. We'll start with you, Brett.
Yeah, I think, look, this is definitely more of Arun's world in terms of the conversion from third to first. But biggest thing for me is creating a streamlined experience with, taking the third party customers and figuring out ways to either incentivize or just win their trust to say, hey, look, like this is why, we'd love for you to be using our first party apps, our websites, on that front. I came from the deal space back before Stream, so that was a big opportunity there to kind of use deals, real-time promotions to leverage on that front. But yeah, I think that's kind of where I stay limited.
Yeah, and then what do you think, Arun? How do you feel we can make it better for what's the advantage for the brands out there to have that kind of strategy and focus on that conversion?
Yeah, I mean, I think, data is a big equalizer. And ultimately, if if a lot of your orders are going through third party, you're losing a lot of that data. You're not really getting a sense of who those customers are. And then in turn, how do you retain those customers, get them to come back to you versus going back to the marketplaces? So, we've seen a lot of brands that work with us do it in different ways. Some folks will create their own app where they can then, kind of white label that experience of their brand over to the digital side of things and then get folks to come back. And then you kind of layer in some sort of loyalty retention component there. And I think it's really providing a sense of brand and community around your specific, story. Versus having them go to the marketplace where you're now competing with multiple other brands. So we work with a lot of brands, or we see a lot of brands do some cool stuff around getting that story, that they have from an in-store experience to now in a digital world where people feel connected to it. And I think it's also a sense of, how do you make it convenient for them? How do you know exactly what they like? And how can you market back to them in a very personalized way? I think, nowadays with all the tech that we have in place, we're so used to very personalized ads, right? So, Chris, if you're a coffee lover, but then I'm sending you ads for tea, doesn't make much sense. So, but how do you get to that stage where it's personalized? It's by getting the data in from as many places as possible, so you know more and more about your guest. So I think that's where that proactive measure of coming in and marketing out to people in a very personalized way, so they feel like they're very connected to the brand. That's what we've seen from both an attraction and a retention perspective of guests. That's the hot topic now. I mean, Brett and I just came back from Dallas, FS Tech, and even a lot of the conferences over the course of this year. A huge topic has been about customer attraction and retention, which are two beasts to solve, but there are different tactics you can use in both. And one of the big first steps to do is to try and convert as many folks from third party onto first party. And now that's where we're seeing, people adopt different loyalty programs, guest engagement programs, where they can now have their own source of, direct ordering rather than going through the marketplaces where they don't necessarily get access to that data.
Yeah, and it's funny. One thing that you guys both touched on was data, right? And right now, I feel like a lot of restaurants, all their data is kind of fragmented. Their orders from their point of sale show in reports here. Their order from Uber Eats shows in their reports from Uber Eats, and like DoorDash from DoorDash. So that kind of brings us to our first customer question for you, Brett, on order management, and I think how customers can use that data if they're seeing it all in one place. So we're going to pull that up now.
What should I look for in an order management system to make sure that it fits well with my restaurant's current setup?
I would want an order management system that syncs with my point of sale, where when orders come in, everything is tagged, right? So you can easily run a report through your point of sale to see what came in from first party, what came in from Uber, DoorDash, Grubhub, if you're using, any of the other marketplaces out there. Something that syncs in real time, right? With inventory, everything on that front. Basically, I'm describing my product, but in reality, that's why we built it. We'd want something that you don't have to look at something separately, manually enter anything in, and just kind of comes in, streamlines the experience. And just to even piggyback kind of like what Arun said in terms of the loyalty piece, the last piece of it is also when you do get to that restaurant's website or app, you want that experience to be seamless. You want everything to go smooth. You don't want to have a crazy checkout process if you are going to go and use if you're going to leave the Uber DoorDash world to try first party. So, but yeah, that's what I'd want in an order management system.
Yeah, and you said something, and it made me almost think like I seem silly for not recognizing it. And your product is called Stream. Is that because you shorten Streamline, or is there a different reason that you called it Stream?
No, that's exactly it. Streamline the entire process.
It's funny. Like I've looked at the website. Like I've been on your LinkedIn. Like we have an integration. But I never I just never put two and two together. So that was kind of an aha moment for me right now, and it makes perfect sense. I feel silly now, but. So how can customers if they're using that order management system and all that stuff's coming in, they're collecting all that data, right? I think that's probably the ease of use, everything flowing in the point of sale is great, but now you have, a bunch of data. So what can customers use what can restaurants use with this data that they maybe couldn't before if everything was fragmented apart between all those different channels?
Yeah, it depends how sophisticated you want to get in terms of, for one, it's just to be able to see how you're performing in every channel, right? The very top level, right? To see what's working, what isn't. There's a lot of now tools, and this kind of relates to what y'all provide as well, what Arun provides, what, a lot of other platforms touch is if you do self-delivery, you get more data, you get the customer information because you have to fulfill that. So if you really want to start to get, deep into it and start to generate campaigns and strategies around all data coming in, you can do that. If you're using, Uber, DoorDash, and Grubhub and their drivers, you're just getting the order information, right? First party is different. Obviously, you get everything, and that's why the goal is to get to first party. There's but there is that route, right, where if you're using a dispatch provider or fleet or your own drivers, you're getting all of that information. So now there's a lot more you can do with that. I'll kind of let Arun talk about what he would suggest with that data, but yeah, that's kind of what we advise is look, it depends on really where you want to go with it.
Yeah, and it's kind of it's complementary, right? So we get all this data, and now for you, Arun, we have all this data. What are these data points? How can we how can restaurant operators take that data and turn it into ways to drive loyalty? These customers have ordered once through your channel or through a third party channel. How do we get them to come back on the first party channel, or just keep coming back when there's a whole world of other places to order tacos from or other places to order a burger from?
Yeah, I think, the world of fragmented data, you still see a lot of brands that go through it, and now there's a lot more platforms that can help unify that data or even stitch stuff together. I mean, there's two ways you can do it. You can either Frankenstein it, or you have platforms that kind of pull it all in a unified way. And I think it just goes back to that idea of being able to market back to those customers, to give them a sense of reward. I think surprise and delight, we hear about that a lot. So understanding, hey, Chris, you came in, you ordered this. Can I surprise you with that at a future date? And that sense of, just feeling attached to the brand. So, there's a ton of stuff we see in the market, and stuff that we offer as well. But really from an operator's perspective, it's knowing who your guests are, knowing where they are in that journey within your loyalty program. Understanding, okay, how often are they visiting? What is their average check size? What are the favorite items that they're ordering? Through what avenues are they ordering? Are they doing catering? Are they doing delivery? Are they doing pickup? Are they coming in store? There's so many different ways to break down the data and segment the data. And it depends on what type of concept that you have. And it can also help you with, as you start to scale your brand or start to do different things with your brand, you can start to now test menu items. You can start to test seasonal items. You can start to look at, hey, where should I expand out next based on where a lot of my folks are coming in from? So, and if you're noticing that, hey, maybe one location, if you're a multi-location group, is getting better online presence than others, okay, what are they doing as best practices versus others? So there's so many ways to benchmark the data. There's so many ways to look at different ways to increase, right? So maybe you want to focus on, typically they say, about 20% of your guests will bring in 80% of the revenue. But how do you increase that pool, right? So how do you get more folks from a third party come to a first party, but then become recurring and guests that are frequent visitors? I think that's the $1 million question that a lot of restaurants are trying to figure out. But again, that's it. It all starts with having the data in one place. So we look at Starbucks and McDonald's, right? They're, I think, the first two big major brands that started having mobile apps, and they had the resources and the money to be able to do so. But there are, what we're able to offer now is to level that playing field and give even a 5-10 location group that same opportunity to do that. But the question is, the data is all there. It's, what are you going to do with it? And really, we've seen some really cool things come from marketing teams at operators, that some really unique programs you can do. It's not just all this data just isn't a way to discount items, right? I think that's, you can do that, but discounts at a point, 10% off a coffee isn't necessarily going to get you come back every single time, but there are other things you can do, right? So tiered loyalty programs, again, we talk about surprise and delight. You can do experiential events based on people that are in different tiers of your loyalty program. There are so many things we're seeing our customers do that are really unique. But I think ultimately having all the data in one place makes that a lot easier than trying to fragment it out. Because if you're missing a big piece of the pie, whether it's in-store data or third-party data or, your digital data, then it makes it really, really tough, because you're only seeing a part of the picture. But there's a lot of platforms now that really unify that, so you can see everything across all channels, that helps you make much better decisions based on data. That you can actually track that in real time to see where your marketing dollars are being spent, because it's really tough to go spend a bunch of marketing dollars into a certain avenue without even knowing kind of what the return is, and that's a lot of money gone. And margins are thin now. Operators are trying to do more with less, and I think making data-driven decisions really helps justify where they want to spend that money, and then they can actually A/B test a lot of cool stuff. So that's kind of what we're seeing with our customers. But it really, the crux of it is, how do you get all that data into one place in a very digestible way, so you can actually make some actions on it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a lot of when people think loyalty, like you kind of touched on it, like a 10% discount only does so much. A free delivery only does so much. I think to create real loyalty, you had mentioned before, like catering that experience to that user. Like if a customer is always ordering a vegetarian dish on your platform, and you run a special on a meat product, you're not going to want to send that meat product to that person that always orders vegetarian things, because that customer is going to be like, this brand doesn't even get me, and that could dissuade them from continuing to order. And I think a lot of people don't think about that kind of hospitality approach when it comes to digital ordering. When customers are in front of restaurants, they know what to do, but when they're removed and they're off premise, I think they get kind of lost in that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, what we see a lot too is it's really blending that digital experience to in-store as well. So you'll see a lot of companies that, will have a loyalty program or an app, but then you go in store and there's nothing, they don't advertise that at all in store, right? So it really comes down to the staff and the culture you create on the on the operator side to have your frontline staff asking the guests as they come in, saying, "Hey, are you part of the loyalty program?" And if they are part of the loyalty program, saying, "Hey, thank you for your loyalty. Here's some of the rewards you have available." So really, I think, you know, and just from chatting with a lot of folks in the industry and a lot of our customers, what we've seen our highest performing customers do is that they're really humanizing their experience. All right, so you have all this tech and all this data, which is great, but to create that human touch using the data is what really bridges that gap from getting someone to be a one-time customer to a returning customer. It's a little thing by referring to someone by their name because they're a loyalty member, or thanking them for their loyalty, or having a surprise and delight. So these are all the little tactics we've seen to get people to come back over and over again, because typically after you come back a few times, then you have someone that's going to be a returning customer, but a majority of your customers will come in once and never again. So how do you now shorten what that percentage is to get them returned back? Is most likely next time they're going to come and bring a friend, or they're going to recommend you for a catering order when they do a work event, right? So that the lifetime value of that customer, the revenue they can bring in, can increase sometimes by just saying something as simple as, "Hey, would you be interested in joining our loyalty program?" Or, "Hey, Chris, thank you for your loyalty. Hey, we noticed your favorite item is this. We've actually included that for whatever." So there's a lot of different ways you can do it, but it really, I think, what we see the best of our best customers do is humanizing that experience, and the frontline staff doing that, on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, and it's funny, a common theme that comes up, because we focus on tech in all of our episodes, but every guest from every company focuses on making things easier. I want to say streamlines, but I can't. I feel like I can't anymore. But streamlining the operation, using Stream, like what Brett has to. Yeah, you could have a tablet farm, and someone could manually enter all your orders into your point of sale, at the takeout counter, or you could use Stream and get that all in there, and that helps do that. You could probably build a website and have online ordering and manually update it and have a loyalty program and spaghetti string them all together, or you could, as a restaurant operator, use Incentivio. And with all that extra time that people get, it really allows them to not do mundane tasks like enter orders or spaghetti string tech, and really focus on that customer experience. And whether that's inside the restaurant's four walls or digitally, and working on time to create a strategy and do it. So all the tech here isn't to replace the human element of the restaurant business. It's just to let the humans focus on the human component of the restaurant business, which I think is really great. And I think it's important for people to remember. Having Incentivio and having Stream doesn't mean you can get rid of someone at your front counter. It just means it gives your front counter person the ability to engage more with the customers as they come in the door.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we always say it helps augment, enhance the frontline staff's ability to now engage with the customers. And again, without a lot of restaurants we see are operating blind from that perspective because they don't know the data. But now we just give them the platform to see it, so they can better connect with their guests, which means more retention and more revenue coming in.
Great. Yeah, and that'll lead us into our question for you, Arun, from an operator about loyalty. So we'll pull that up now.
How can using customers' data for my loyalty program get people to come back more often?
There we go. Yeah. So I think we touched on a few of those pieces there. I think, again, the data that you come in, there's a lot of ways you can use that, right? So we can help segment it, and you can actually get down to as specific as an item level if you want, and it really depends where the customer is in their journey within your loyalty program. Maybe if they're just first starting out, you can start to mess them out about the generics of the loyalty program, where you can get with it, and you can also get as specific as, "Hey, we know you're a coffee lover. We're actually adding you to our coffee lovers part of the loyalty program, where we're going to incentivize you on any coffee purchases." And really personalize that messaging going out. So I think that's really some of the level of specificity you can get with the data that's out there. And I think besides that, we've touched on it again. It's that human component, right? So the frontline staff, as this person comes in, or if this person's doing maybe if they're doing a delivery order, it's a handwritten card inside that package that goes out for delivery. Hey, it takes 2 seconds, right? But hey, Chris, thank you for your loyalty. Appreciate you, being a part of the X brand family. Enjoy whatever, right? So I think just those small things, and this is stuff I've heard just from, conversations I've had, and even in my own experience, and I'm sure each of you have had this as well, like just a small little handwritten card sometimes, or something a little extra in the bag, that can go a very, very long way, because then it becomes more about just the food quality experience, which obviously that needs to be there. But sometimes people go back to a brand, and sometimes they'll even forgive a mistake in an order or a mistake in the quality of the food because they're connected to that brand. And how do you make that connection? It's just small little things like this, but without knowing who that customer is, without knowing, again, if they're just an unknown, which we call a stranger, that's coming through a third party, it's hard to do that. But with the data, with owning your own data and going first party, you can now do those very personalized things that, again, it's small. It's a very, it takes 2 seconds for some of those things to do, but it goes a very, very long way in getting that customer to come back over and over again.
Yeah, and it's a lot easier when it's first party, right? When you have all that data. So I'm thinking, like, Brett, like with Stream, it's bringing in all those orders and making that order management system. Are there like things that order managements help with, or that you've seen some of your customers do to create loyalty in the third party space? I know it's a little bit harder because it's really hard to break some of these customers off of those apps. Any ways that restaurants can like stand out in those spaces that you've seen?
Yeah, I mean, I think, as Arun was talking, I was just thinking about some of that stuff. Look, we work with a lot of phenomenal companies, first party, third party, dispatch, AI ordering, you name it, right? They all flow through us. Super fortunate to kind of work with all these companies. The biggest thing that I've seen is the brands that kind of move to self-delivery. They're the ones that are getting the most data. That's really the best way to go about it in terms of like being able to kind of convert and take action. I'm sure if I don't work at Uber, DoorDash, or Grubhub, I think they would have some ideas of how they're doing things internally on their end to help brands, right? I think that's why, there's storefront at DoorDash and stuff like that. I don't know though, so I can't really speak there, right? But if I had a restaurant and I was using those three channels and then I had my first party, I would relay those orders through, onto, if I had my own drivers, and then use the hybrid delivery model, right? I think what Arun said in terms of like incentivizing individuals, and this is not to do necessarily with your question, but one thing that you want to do is, how do you get that 20% of making up your 80% of revenue? How do you increase that? And I think it's by incentivizing the people that are your diehard customers, but having them also incentivizing them, bringing in more people, right? Bringing in friends. Because if you're a huge fan of somewhere and you bring someone in with you, and now they're getting a treat, or they're seeing how much you enjoy the place and they have a good experience, like, people generally don't eat alone. Obviously, depends on the concept, depends on the meal, but now you're doubling, tripling, at the same time. Like, that's kind of, again, taking the data once you get it and doing things with it and personalizing. But yeah, back to the original question in terms of like, order management and the third party piece, I would say self-delivery really is, from what I've seen, what companies have been most successful with.
Yeah, and I would almost consider that like almost a hack, right? Like, it's something that some people do, some operators do, but a large majority don't. And I think you're right. And that's taking your third-party marketplace orders, and then either delivering them yourself as the restaurant, or partnering with a third-party fleet, like you mentioned, Relay, someone who can deliver it for you that isn't the marketplace that the order came from. And that gives that restaurant all that information. So you're still getting the advantage of being listed on the third-party marketplace, but you're getting that customer data that you can then use to better convert those customers to first party, or just understand your customer better.
exactly. And I do love the relay team, but I was actually just saying relay the orders
Oh.
over there, ironically. But you know what? It's a good shout out to them. Matt and that team is great. But yeah, exactly that. You're exactly that point.
It's so funny. I'm so programmed in the last mile space. As soon as I hear relay, I just assume like relay. Now, when I hear streamlined, I'm just going to assume stream. So my brain is very, very wired. I just need some kind of cue for Incentivio. So every time I hear a word, I think of that. But it's funny. So we have a fun game to play. We're going to play LTO, or classic menu item. And it's funny because the first time that someone used LTO in the restaurant space, I automatically assumed lettuce, tomato, onion, because that's how I get my sandwiches. And they're like, no, it actually means limited time offer. And I'm like, that makes sense too, I guess. So what I'm going to do is how this is going to work. We're going to talk about a strategy or approach related to tools and technology. And you'll answer if you think that it should be a limited time offer, something that operators do occasionally or maybe shouldn't focus on, or the classic menu item, a staple on the menu that should always be there, or something that a restaurant should always do because it's important to their business. So you guys ready to get started with our little LTO game?
Let's do it.
Let's do
All
it.
right, cool. We'll start with you, Arun. Implementing a data-driven marketing campaign. Is that something that a restaurant should do once in a while, like a limited time offer, or is it a classic menu item?
I think it's a classic menu item. Especially with all the technology that you have out there with the AI and ML, it can really take the guessing game out of how you market to certain folks. It can be very tedious, right? Especially if you have a lot of different types of guests, depending on how complex your menu is. If you have, if you're a sandwich place, but also offer smoothies and coffees and all these different things, to try and market separately to each of those different types of guests, it can be quite cumbersome and take up a lot of time. So there's a lot of cool AI and ML platforms built into CRM databases that can actually suggest some of that content for you. Now, I think there's a lot of AI and ML that's still not fully there yet. So you still need some human intervention to make sure that, the content's not too lengthy or it's not going into too much strange detail. But I think it's something that every operator should be looking at and should be very proactive about, because if you're not marketing to your guests on a proactive basis and in a timely manner, someone else is, and you're most likely going to lose that customer to another brand, because the space is becoming so competitive now. So I would say it's something that needs to be on there all the time.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And then thinking on, we're talking about delivery and using different fleets or using your own drivers. So this one's for you, Brett. Using real-time tracking for deliveries, is that something that's an LTO or a classic menu item?
I mean, in terms of the restaurant, tracking the real time orders,
The customer tracking the order to them. So if you're using a different fleet, should you make sure that you're always sending tracking information, or is this something that if I send it once in a while, it's fine? But
no, it's something you want to have on each customers. It's standard. You got to do it. You got to provide that information. It allows for the customer. I think the biggest thing, and I've had this, is when I've ordered from someone's site or web and you don't really maybe get a clean process on that. You're like, am I getting the food? Did it go through? What's happening? So no, providing a nice, smooth experience there is absolutely necessary.
yeah, you want to know your burrito is going to show up. You want to see that. And I think one thing we underutilize in this space is that tracking page is a great marketing avenue, right? As soon as you get that link, hey, your food's on the way, you've captured your customer's attention. I feel like that's the time to attack and offer them something to sign up for that loyalty program, or, who knows?
Yeah, that's a great idea. I mean, that's a great point.
Yeah. All right, and we got another one. Arun, LTO or classic menu item, regularly analyzing customer purchase data.
Yeah, I think that's also something you should be doing all the time. Trends change, your customer, profile can change, right? Based on seasonal items, based on whatever that could be. I think, if you're not tracking that in real time, then it's really stuff. Again, we talk about being proactive with your marketing measures and proactive with the way you do customer traction and retention. And buying patterns change, right? Different things happen. I mean, we talk about the fall season coming up, so everyone's in pumpkin spice latte mode. So you got to stay in front of that, and again, testing out seasonal items, which you want to stay in front of that stuff. And if you're not, then again, you're just going back to a guessing game and a very reactive game. And the second you're reactive in this industry, especially now where I think we're all so used to everything happening like this, right? Again, going back to the delivery, tracking your delivery time. I mean, I know the amount of times I order food and I'm staring at the thing, being like watching the guy in the map come over to you. So we're so used to things happening so quickly now. And we're at a state where if something's marketed to you the wrong way, it almost turns you off, right? Like, we're so used to everything being so personalized. I mean, you look at you sign into YouTube now, and you sign into all these different apps like Instagram, TikTok. I mean, the algorithms are all based on stuff you've seen in the past, right? So it's all kind of learning models that they're constantly building on each other. So I think if you kind of have to remain on that and be proactive, otherwise, again, you lose your customer because someone else is going to be doing it all the time.
Yeah, no, you're right. And I'm so anti pumpkin spice too early in the season. I tried vigilantly to keep my wife from ordering pumpkin spice stuff at least until like September 22nd, when it's the official last day of summer. And I lost.
Yeah, every year it starts earlier and earlier. So yeah, who knows? Next thing you know, we'll be drinking it in July at some point.
Yeah, be like, oh look, it's Memorial Day. Get your pumpkin spice latte.
The whole time at FS Tech, the whole time at FS Tech said, I cannot wait for my first pumpkin spice latte.
Oh no.
He gets the venti extra shot. He said.
I get the twitches if I don't get them enough. So
Yeah, I'm dying inside right now. But and then our last LTO or classic menu item for you, Brett, is sitting on. It's okay to only be on like one omni-channel, or I'm gonna feature myself on just one marketplace. Is that like an LTO, something you should just do occasionally, or a classic menu item you should be on all channels?
It depends, honestly. That's a tricky question because there are a lot of like really great restaurants that are exclusive to one of the third parties. I think oftentimes it's because they get a really good offer from whichever channel that is, and if it makes sense for your business to do that, then that is the right path. Generally speaking, I think the more exposure, the better, right? I think there's a lot of really, you've got, again, in the US, obviously Uber, DoorDash, and Grubhub. Postmates is part of Uber, but those are the big ones. And you've got a lot of really great, other platforms as well. Eat Street in the Midwest, Favor, Slice for pizzerias. You've got the specialized ones like Fantuan, Hungry Panda. There's other local providers as well. Again, I think, and this is where Stream comes in, is like, once you're on one, it takes seconds to add all the others. All you have to do is have an account, right? So there's no additional management, right? And it's additional exposure. They're different customer bases, right? Like if you're going to go in Fantuan and Hungry Panda, it's going to hit the Asian demographic because those are the majority of their users, right? So that's individuals who might not have ordered from your business beforehand, right? So things like that. On the catering side, there's obviously some great channels there too. So I would say it makes sense to be on all of them. Make sure that you're going about it right way with pricing, with the margins and everything. You don't necessarily even need to offer full menus. You can do specialized menus. I'm seeing some brands get really smart, and after a certain time, the menu gets limited, so they don't have a full menu after maybe 8 p.m. But their quickest made items or whatever it is, and I think that's really smart. But yeah, I mean, again, I would be on all of them, unless of course, again, there's certain ones where Uber or DoorDash will come in and say, hey, we want you exclusive and give you a really good package, and in that case, it's something to think about.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And I always like what I try to do is mix up like at least one question that it's like it's not a one size fits all kind of model for something. So like when you'd said like you got to do what's right for your business. Not every restaurant runs the same way. Not every restaurant should be on every platform. Not every restaurant should have their full menus. But It's about thinking what's right for your restaurant. So it's definitely not a one shoe fits all for a marketing strategy, for a digital storefront strategy, for loyalty points. You got to do what's right for your brand and your customer base.
Yeah, and I think like, again, 5 years ago, 4 years ago, it was the challenge was if you were on like five or six of them, and then you hit your peak times, right? And you want to pause or you need to slow down because prep times are longer. Oh, well, I have to go into like 9 different products and change that, right? And then remember to go turn them back on. And sometimes you got a kid at the front who's managing all of that, and it's tough. Whereas like again, where platforms like ours comes in, it's like it's one click of a button. You can pause, you can change, move prep times. POSs as well provide prep times like Toast. Like, so you don't need to go in and now deal with like 15 different accounts to make a switch or a temporary kind of thing. So again, I think the more exposure, always the better. And then also when going back to the earlier point, understanding the data that comes in, I think it's good to get the volume across the board. But if you're getting, if there's a channel that you're getting a majority of your traffic, from, and you're able to track that, that's maybe where you want to focus. And then eventually, of course, again, try to Arun's point, convert that back over to first party.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Good stuff. Thanks so much, guys, for being good sports during our LTO or classic menu item. As we wrap up today's episode of Talk Tech Live, I want to thank our amazing guests for sharing their insights on optimizing orders and enhancing customer loyalty. Your expertise has provided invaluable tips for restaurant operators looking to elevate their game. Before we sign off, do you guys have anything you want to add?
I just want to say thank you to you. I think you did a phenomenal job. We're excited to be partners with y'all. I think you did a really good job, and Arun and I were laughing just because we're good friends and we had no idea that we were both going to be on this. And we spent the last
we didn't plan the green outfits either. This was just also coincidence. So yeah. Yeah, thank you, Chris. This was great. I mean, always love having conversations like this where we can just chat about how we can, how operators can enhance what they're doing, right? I think ultimately there's a lot of competition in this space. I mean, Brett and I were talking about this just even at FS Tech. I think there's a lot of, in every avenue of restaurant tech, there's a ton of competition, but ultimately we're all just trying to help the hospitality industry. So I think conversations like this are great because we just want to help operators out. That's ultimately the goal why we're all in this. So, to help move things forward and educate folks. I think that's the big piece. Maybe that's getting lost in a lot of things, that the education of what operators can do and not to scare them away with tech, right? Like I think a lot of people hear about AI and ML now, it's gone from being a buzzword to almost table stakes in a lot of cases. But for some folks, it can still be a scary thing because like, hey, what does it mean? You brought up earlier, is it going to, take away jobs or replace jobs? And we're trying to educate folks to say, no, all it's going to do is enhance the way you can interact with your customers and operate a more efficient business. I think that's nowadays with the way margins are and the costs of everything going up to such an insane amount and, all these new laws coming into place, you really want to be able to operate an efficient business. And the best way to do that is to have a good sense of, your data and how to use that data, because data really is the big equalizer, and that's really going to help you operate a super efficient business and get you close with your customers. So I think the questions you asked were great. The questions from the operators are great, and you were an awesome host. So appreciate you again for thinking of us as the guests on this show. Hopefully we said some stuff that was helpful, but again, thank you for being a great host.
No, I appreciate that. And you touched on something, I think it's educating people, and at the end of the day, it's people helping people, right? And that's what it's all about. And as we think about people helping people, just want to remind everybody, comment how many times the guest said this word here for a chance to win that Talk Tech Live swag bag for our donation dish. Make sure to tune in next week for another episode of Talk Tech Live. Until then, keep optimizing your orders and building customer loyalty. I'll see you then.